2 minutes if you want, I'm sure.
We got 2 minutes, yeah.
See those tennis legs.
Just don't slip on the ice.
It's in my bag. That's all.
Good thing you got sneakers on.
Oh, yes.
No,
High
yeah.
heels.
Got glasses. Summer, yeah, 23. Yes. Yep. Yep. She'll have to come back during the middle of
Oh,
this.
we're going back in time.
Call the meeting to order. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
Just give her a second, she'll be back.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give Councilmember Michael Rossi like 30 seconds to run back in the building. She forgot her glasses. She is. All right. We move to. Is there any, you know what, let's just move to public comment on agenda items. Is there any public comment on any of the agenda items tonight?
Oh, there's no agenda?
There's no agenda.
Oh,
For me to run up and, no, I don't.
My office is locked.
I'll go into the thing.
can.
Thank you, Tom.
yeah,
Sorry about that.
no, that's okay. That's
Thank
okay.
you.
That's it.
Fire me now.
No, we're not gonna, I mean, she's,
Could never hire you.
we have the deputy clerk with us tonight, which, she does a wonderful job, so. Well,
You can say it, she's the glue.
hey. Well, the agenda is, for those that have smartphones, you can go on the Facebook page, town's Facebook page. You can just pull it up, you can click on the link, and you can pull up the agenda that way until we have printed copies. Want me to go see if I can find a brochure?
You can't find her way back from the car without her glasses. I don't know.
Maybe she needs her glasses to find her glasses.
Here she is.
We're gonna get it. Okay, so, should we wait for the agenda or just go?
Why don't we go with the resolution of seat 10 and then?
Yeah, you know what, I mean, you know, we ought to just, let's just start with, first up with the special meeting. So, we have, we'll come back to public comment once we, why don't we start out with, so we have a resolution to appoint Councilman-elect Tim McCarty to the vacant seat. Let me just read this resolution here real quick. Whereas in 2019, whereas in the 2019 election, Joshua Wojciechowski was elected to the office of Town Councilman of the Town of Cornwall for a term of office running from January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2023. And whereas in the 2021 election, Joshua Wojciechowski was elected to the position of Town Supervisor of the Town of Cornwall for a term of office running from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2023, which created a vacancy in the office of Town Councilman to which he had previously been elected. And whereas in the 2022 election, Timothy I. McCarty was elected to serve the remainder of the term of the said vacancy in the office of Town Councilman commencing on January 1st, 2023 and ending on December 31st, 2023. Now therefore it be resolved that the town board hereby appoints Timothy I. McCarty to fill the said vacancy in the office of Town Councilman effective immediately and approves seating him on the town board immediately. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Michael Rotzi?
Yes.
Mr. Wojciechowski?
Yes.
He's got to take his oath of office.
Oh, yes, yep, there. Let's do the oath of office first, and then we'll hand you over your placard.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Timothy McCarty,
I, Timothy McCarty,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I support the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
I faithfully discharge
the duties of Town Councilman
the duties of Town Councilman
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Sam, I need you to sign before you sit. Sign before you sit.
Sign and seal.
Just right there.
Tim, here you go. Congratulations. All right, so going back to, are there any public comments on any of the agenda items for tonight? No? Okay. So first up, we have the Main Street Hotel project and Restore New York presentation. Let me just, I've got to get another member of their party to.
put it up?
An easel? If we have one.
I have an
Is there
idea.
one handy?
I have an idea.
Share it.
You get
No, yeah, you
Maybe can you lean it up against this? Would that work?
It's,
It's a teacher thing, I just like.
Sure.
Oh, looks nice.
that works.
Do you want to,
You may want to take.
well, I'm gonna try to clip up.
like that?
Yeah.
All right.
No,
Huh?
I don't think that's gonna work.
All right, well, bring it down. Watch
Do
your
all-
fingers.
do all three cups.
I don't think the lid will
I might just
All right.
try to sort it out a little.
Okay.
Okay.
Or do you want someone to hold
No,
it? for you?
no, I'll work it out. Thank you.
Wouldn't this come out from the, if we go down
Probably.
on
That's a good idea.
But every step we
Wait, do
take,
you
I'm
mind moving
more
this?
embarrassed I didn't bring an easel.
Thank you.
the bottom doesn't come off?
No,
No,
it's taped,
okay.
that's right.
It's,
Yeah.
It's
I
taped.
can hold it up as we.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I'm gonna start. Just gonna wait for Steve to join us. He's the one that's gonna be talking about the Restore New York. Okay, so,
So, my name is Bart Lansky. I represent Two Girls, One Boy Holdings LLC, which is the owner of 317 Main Street, which most of you know is the old Berniker Dodge facility. It's currently being used. The beneficial owner of that LLC is Mr. Perez, who's here with me. He's currently using it for storage. Since the purchase of it a few years ago, we've had the opportunity to do some remediation of the facility. It has an open spill number with DEC. We were able to get that closed, and now we are interested in the Restore New York program. And I believe the notice to apply has been sent out. Our consultant, Steve Densmore, is joining us. But the intent is to build a hotel on that parcel and to work cooperatively with the town in doing that project. I have a site plan, broadly speaking, showing the existing building, and then we have the existing footprint, and we're showing new parking for the facility. We just did our first planning board meeting recently, and then we have a proposed elevation, which we're still working on, but essentially going 4 stories on top of the existing block structure and developing the parking, and trying to have a great project for the town. The Restore New York program gives points to environmentally contaminated projects, gives points to projects which have multiplier effects for the towns. And one of the things we've talked to various people in the town about is enlarging this project to some extent to make it more collaborative with the town and provide parking for the town. So there is an adjacent parcel that we have, which is a different owner, but we would like to develop it as part of the Restore New York grant, assuming we get grant money, and build out 38 parking spots, more or less, on the property which is known as 325 Main Street, which some of you know as the old law office of Charles Abramsky. It's kind of a 1970s residential structure, but it has a nice piece of land, and it's adjacent to this. There is access on Purdy's Lane, which most of you know from going to Fiddlesticks, and going out that way to Clinton. So, assuming there are grant monies available, this would be something we would like to develop with those grant monies. And the process for Restore New York involves a public hearing. It involves publishing a notice to all the adjacent list of assessed owners, and a few other pieces which I think Steve is going to expound But essentially, we're here to show you the project, to ask for your support, and we will, of course, at some point in time, need a resolution from the town that they're willing to support the project. And then, of course, we go into the pool and we're up against other people in our region, and depending on what other projects show up, we have a chance of getting up to a couple $1 million, which will go a long way towards making improvements and creating a great project in town. So that's, Steve, do you have something to add?
Sure, Bart, pleased to be with you all virtually here. Good to see you. My name is Steve Bensmore. My firm is Choice Words. We do strategic communications and grant writing for municipalities, nonprofits, for-profit entities, universities. We're based in New Paltz, but we serve the Hudson Valley and recently opened an office in Ithaca. So we're pretty busy, but the Restore New York program, I think, fits this project very well. It's a great collaborative effort between the town, Cornwall, and Keith Perez, and this revitalized property. The program is actually, it was a very popular program for many years. Then it went into kind of hiatus for a while, and Governor Hochul recently reenacted the program and re-energized it with more funding. And we are now in the second round of Restore New York for this cycle, this season. The town is considering supporting this project as a pass-through. This essentially, the funding would go, if approved, the funding would go through the town to the development effort and help revitalize your hamlet or downtown area. The program scores points and awards points for commercializing vacant property or underutilized property in a hamlet or a downtown. It also benefits sites that have been reclaimed from contamination or brownfields, which this one is, and it rewards projects that bring properties to a new commercial use or housing use. In this case, a hotel with a restaurant would be appropriate to this grant program. But I agree with what Bart said earlier, and I think we've discussed this with the supervisor, that including some element of hamlet parking that supports the business district would score well in this regard. So anyways, we're pleased to be before you, and we're looking forward to partnering with you on this rather complicated application, but something we've done before, and we're sure we can pull together in the next month and a half.
Great. So let me just kind of bring the board up to date. So the town submitted a non-binding letter of intent that was due on November 30th. That just allowed us, that gave us more time to essentially decide if we're going to submit a grant, if the town's going to be for this or not. This grant is due on
January 27th?
Yeah, January 27th. And so, we submitted the letter of intent, but now this comes before the board, and the board really has to determine whether or not, because essentially the town would be applying for this. And we would work with Mr. Perez and Steve to put together an application and to submit it by the deadline. But there's a couple of steps that are involved. One is which probably next week or the week after we would have to get out a notice of a public hearing. Then we'd have to have a public hearing on the project and the proposal. And then after that, the board would have to pass a resolution allowing the town to apply for this, and and so those are kind of the steps, and those have to be put into place by January 27th. So those are we got a month and a half, but it's going to fly by with the holidays. So Certainly, I am not an expert on Restore New York, so certainly we're going to be looking to, Steve and the town's consultants to help us evaluate this. I happen to think that one of the things that excites me about the project, besides the almost $8 million investment, the 45 jobs it would create, the property taxes, the sales tax, is if they were to build those, 38 municipal spots. And so if the town is able to successfully get the Restore New York funding, that makes that more, likely that we can do that, because it would involve, doing some work on the adjacent property to create those spots. So for me, I think it's a win, but certainly, we're, like a ways away from, we still have like a process we got to go through. And this is outside of the planning board process that they have to, it's kind of running concurrently. So as you know, right now before the planning board, they just had their first meeting. There's certainly, there's comments that, were made by the planning board. They've got copies of those. They know what they have to address, what deficiencies, what things they have to deal with. And, they've been, I will say all along, they've been very sort of, very willing to work, to make changes and to do things that are needed to, to advance their project. But I would ask any board members, do you have any, questions about the project, about the grant program? Now's the time to ask.
Is the town, is the town, in terms of our application for this grant, do we have to pay for the application and everything, or does this come through the property owner?
So the only, in terms of the property owner he is taking care of the grant writing. I believe the only thing that the town has, I think there's a $500 application fee
So the town would be.
that we have to pay. But as far as the writing, yes, Steve.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, again, other clients have covered that on behalf of their
Sure.
municipalities.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can't
We
speak.
would be happy to
Yeah,
as well.
so really, this is really going to be, I would say, very minimal to no cost to the town to submit this beyond, some due diligence by the town's attorney, and
Similarly, there'll be costs, we have to do
Sure.
a publication for 3 weeks in the newspaper.
Right.
So that has to be done relatively soon, but
Sure.
we're gonna cover the cost for that as well.
Okay.
That's all part of this.
okay, that's good. I had actually had a question. So I know there's have to demonstrate at least a 10% match. I spoke to Steve about this earlier. My understanding is that the match can come from private funds. It can come from the developer. It can come from, in kind, other types of resources. I mean, I guess, Steve, if you could talk about that.
Yeah, sure, that's very accurate, Josh. The 10% is 10% of the potential award, and that can be demonstrated in equity or a cash reserve that's attested to by the developer. It can come from the private side, not the municipal side.
Mhm. So the value of the
And
land.
it's the intention that comes from the private side.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can swear that the investment is gonna be a lot more than 10% of the grant amount.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just think we had to, because that's the one thing that sort of, we had to get the.
Yep.
So, yeah, there's that, and then obviously, certainly, next step, I guess, if the board agrees to go through with this, would be schedule a public hearing, have the public hearing, then decide if we're gonna vote to authorize the submittal of this, and then it gets submitted, and then we've got to get it in by January 27th.
Yeah, and there's a resolution.
Yeah.
Approving it in that process.
Yes, we would give you a model resolution in support of the application.
I do have a couple of questions. How long does it take to know if the grant application has been successful and given the money? How long does it take?
Great question. We're still waiting for the first round that was submitted the first week of October. We anticipate it'll be any day now. So again, this program hasn't been active in several years, so they've kind of resurrected it. A along with several other new programs by the state, so they're a tad busy over there. But they, we think we'll find out soon about the first round, and that would project an announcement of the second round awards probably in anywhere from 3 to 4 months.
I see. I do have one more question. Given that we all agreed to veto and say, let's go with this project, what is Mr. Perez's plan B if he does not get the grant? Is he gonna go on with his own money to build the
I
property or
don't
not?
think Steve can answer
No,
that.
that's-
Yeah,
And
that's-
frankly, I don't know that we can answer that at this time. You know, getting a grant would be a big piece of this project. It would change the finances.
Right.
So I'm not saying we wouldn't go forward, but we'd have to give it a lot of serious thought and try to figure it out.
So there's no plan B at the moment?
We don't have a firm plan B at this time.
I see.
We cross that bridge.
The only thing I can say, again, I can't speak to the particular finances of the developer in this case, but this grant program is designed to help resurrect properties that are difficult to redevelop. Right? I mean, that's part of the purpose of the state's investment here, is to recognize that vacant, underutilized, and sometimes contaminated properties in the hearts of hamlets and villages and cities are some of the most difficult challenges for developers to take on. So it helps to bridge the gap in financing that might otherwise make it a difficult project to take on.
Mm.
Is there anyone else? Okay, so, I mean, I think what's gonna happen next is that, certainly the town board, if there's anything that you think you need from me, or from, Mr. Perez, or from Steve Densmore, or from any of, Keith's team to help, make, I guess, a decision as to whether or not, but I do think, at a minimum, we should schedule the public hearing, so the public can, weigh in on this. It doesn't mean we're gonna vote for it, but it means that the public gets to weigh in on it. And so I think we should at least do that. And I think due to the timeline, it probably makes sense that we do that, we schedule it next week for early January, I would think.
Okay, sounds good.
And then that'll give us time, over the holidays to get whatever information we think we need from Mr. Perez and his team. And then we can, have the public hearing, and then we can decide, how to move forward. I mean, look, certainly, I do think the intent behind Restore New York is to restore these blighted, vacant, properties, and also do like a, adaptive reuse project. So this is perfectly suited for this project. So I definitely think it's kind of a good, but, certainly we're a long ways away from there. And, do you have any questions of us, of the town?
No, I just want to, thank you in advance for the consideration. And Steve, if you could circle back and confirm what the publication notification is, so that we get the right date for the public
Exactly.
hearing, that would be great. I don't know if it's different for this than for your standard meetings, so we'll just double check that for you and send it over.
Yep, certainly.
Right,
Yes, Steve.
it made it, the limiting step might be the public hearing requirements. So in some cases, if you work with a daily, that can be done in 3 days concurrently, or if you work with a weekly, it has to be planned accordingly. So
Yeah, I mean,
it can
our
also be published. It can also be published virtually, by the way, if that's an option.
If we're not gonna hold the meeting until January, I don't think we're gonna have a problem with timing on the notice at all.
Right.
I mean, and in fact, look, our options for around here, we've got the Times Hall Record, which there's a little more leeway, and then we generally put stuff in the Cornwall Local, that's our paper of record, but for this, maybe we would put it in both. But,
Fine.
yeah. So,
So as soon as you meet your first publication in the Cornwall Local, that might help us determine when the appropriate date for the public hearing would be, given your meeting schedule.
Yeah, I would think so. Our first January meeting though is going to be
10.
it's January 10th.
Yes.
Now, if that's a little tight, then we may have to consider
Special meeting.
having a special meeting just to have the public hearing on this, like maybe the first week of January. But we'll sort that out on our side and I'll talk to you folks offline to make sure we're going to have enough time for you to get feedback from the public, consider that in your application, all that good stuff. So if there's no other questions, then let's move on to the next topic. Thank you very much for bringing this in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking
You
the
all.
time.
Thank you, Steve.
Good night.
Bart, thank you for taking the time and meeting with me before.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Love the photos.
Well, it's a look. I mean, hopefully people like it.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not sure it's finalized yet. We have different ideas about dormers and facades and stuff, but, we want to make something pretty.
It looks very Victorian, very nice.
Yeah, the idea was to be a main street, an old-time New York Main Street. Yeah, I think I might be here again in a second.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yes, actually, yes. Okay, so, yes, you do have part 2. So, Mr. Perez has a zoning change request for 2280 Route 9W, which you know as that parcel that's off of that Angola Road, exit, I guess you would call it.
Going to be a gas station at one time?
Yes, yeah, I mean, it used to be a gas station, and, yeah,
I
so,
don't think it ever opened.
The history I saw was it's been a garage since 1950. And at some point in time, it was rezoned to SR2, which is a multifamily zone, but it's a particular one which says it allows 2 families when you have town water.
Wow.
And so it's not quite apropos for this place, which doesn't have town water and is sort of a uniquely commercial property. It's on 9W, and then the frontage is on the 9W circulation road. So it's all on state roads. And it's 2.5 acres, and it has a garage sitting there, and so it's pre-existing non-conforming, and at this point in time, it will be a garage, because there's not much else we can do with it based upon its zone. But I think it's an ideal property for, like, highway commercial, which as a zone, which is farther up the street, and is the natural zoning for that area. And it's sort of for me, it could act as a bridge from people coming down off Storm King into Cornwall. And so the idea that I had with Mr. Perez was to do some type of welcome center, convenience, gas, electric vehicle charging, and something like that, and work towards that, assuming there's an opportunity for rezoning. And the argument for the rezoning is that it's kind of orphaned in that zone, and the zone's not appropriate for that parcel because there is no town water available, and it's uniquely commercial.
okay. So is that
So
the
this is
rendering of what
this
you're...
is just a rendering
Yeah, just a very
of
rough.
kind of a larger gas station. I think I've been in front of Mr. Gabba before when he's been in Phillipstown with gas stations, if you look familiar. So I have done some work in the gas station business. We did a quick kind of site plan showing a larger convenience store with a drive-through, likely something like a Dunkin' Donuts. People can have quick coffee, but also because this circulation road heads into Cornwall, something nicer. I'm using the word welcome center, but it's clearly early development. The idea would be to be highway commercial zoning and have that opportunity. And this is just design development. We're just showing setbacks from the road, parking, existing septic, and then a canopy with some fuel pumps on it as an idea. Now, certainly, you know, if it's highway commercial, we would be within, gas is one thing, and there's other uses, banks, there's other things which are allowed in that zone. But I think it's a more appropriate zone than trying to build a two-family without water right on the highway. And it, I think it'd be a nice place to welcome people to this town.
So what was this station you said, was it in Fishkill?
Oh, no, I was saying that I recognize your attorney.
I get
Oh, I'm
around.
sorry.
He serves on the.
He gets around different
He's-
municipalities.
I've been in front of him with gas stations in other towns.
Have you done any other projects in the area that we could?
Well, so, as the attorney, I can't really take credit for,
Okay,
for my clients' projects, but I certainly personally have done a number of projects, redevelopment work. Most of my work is in Putnam County.
okay.
And I'm very proud to show my buildings. You can just ask Keith and other
Okay,
people.
okay.
But in this area, I have been involved in a large number of gas stations, as an attorney. And so I have a number of clients that we would reach out to if we had highway commercial zoning. And then, of course, there's a long process.
Sure.
And there's a number of challenges with that, but I just think this is a property which is well suited to that. And I knew I was gonna be here tonight, and I said, why not?
For a guest.
Let's see, well,
I get you.
highway commercial. So this has no deadlines though, so I don't have to tell you we need to do anything by January 27th. I would say simply that I'd like to start the conversation and then pick it up, you know, a couple months from now or something like that. I'd like to reach out again.
So the only thing I would say, so the town is looking at doing a zoning cleanup bill in the spring, and I think it makes sense. I've certainly forwarded this over to the town's consultants, and typically we set escrow for review, but you must already have a escrow account with the planning board.
We do.
So I guess, you know, if the board is okay with it, since, you know, perhaps Mr. Perez could, you know, use the already established escrow account with the planning board, and if they have to replenish it, they would replenish it. And then this would allow the town's consultants, the planner, the attorney, the planning board attorney, to review this as part of our series of possible zoning amendments that we're looking at doing in the spring.
As opposed to establishing a separate escrow.
Yeah, we'd be
for
happy
the
to,
zone change.
we'd be
Yeah.
happy to do that.
Okay,
It's always
just
easier
need
to write.
something agreeing to that. Email would be fine, but just something saying it'd be all right. Then we'll just charge the consultant's fees through all of them to the planning board escrow.
Sure. I will send the confirmed.
Okay. Is there any questions from board members? No? Okay,
Thank you for your time.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So next up, we need to, there's an easement that we need to accept for the Continental Road culvert. We're gonna act on this later in the special meeting, but basically there's a wing wall on the culvert that is a, you know, it's basically adjacent to a property owner, you know. It's James Jacoberger and Maureen McKenna. I've spoken to them. They're just very excited to have that culvert installed, and they had, I mean, they, you know, they want this done. So they're very happy to grant that to us. And so later on in the special meeting, I'm gonna look to act on that. You may have seen the crane over there the past couple days. I mean, we're lifting the pieces in place. And so the goal, it looks like we're on track to have that all done by the end of the year. Should be a real relief for the residents in that neighborhood.
Just a couple of things, do you mind if I?
Yeah, sure, Steve, yeah, yep.
So first off, the town needs 2 easements. The other one was Mrs. Cox's property. Mrs. Cox unfortunately has passed on. So we're in contact with her executrix, and she is going to be executing a companion easement, if you will, that goes with this for the wing wall, and hopefully for next meeting, if not then the first meeting in January, we should have that easement ready to go. We've ordered title search and title insurance on these 2 easements. I don't think that the town needs to adopt a resolution to approve them, it's just a standard to get them when you take an easement. But that's going to be part of this as well, when Josh actually goes to sign and have the easements recorded.
Thanks for that, Steve.
So we can vote on these things separately?
Yeah, they're two separate properties, so.
Okay.
Yeah, there's actually two separate resolutions. So one is for the Jacob Burgers, who,
Right.
and the other one is for Cox, which we'll have to.
Fill in the name of the executrix, I'm not sure.
Until that's,
Yeah.
exactly, okay.
Okay, next up, we have a sewer main easement. So, as you know, we've been doing this infiltration, inflow and infiltration remediation since, February now? And so the last part of this is gonna be having to come down Main Street behind a bunch of properties. There is some sewer main relocation that we have to do. And there's a property at 281 Main Street, and it happens to be, I believe it's the only property that we don't have an easement on. So in order for, it's kind of like right in the middle, so we needed to get an easement in order to be able to complete the whole project. So we have been in touch with Mr. Frank Bloomer and Stephanie L. Bloomer. They own the property back through the Hayes lot. I think it's like a puppy daycare, and yeah, and so that's their property and their parking lot. It's also right next to Joya Studios, and so this would allow us to basically get the easement to be able to run the do the project through the property and connect to the other. So I will be asking in the special meeting for the board to approve this easement, for me to sign the easement. Next up, we have the Redden Settlement Agreement. I'm gonna let the town attorney just talk about that real quick.
Okay, the town received a notice of claim from Mr. and Mrs. Redden in regard to property located at the corner of the Boulevard and Hasbrook Avenue. The town's insurance company disclaimed coverage in regard to liability on it. The property owner has proposed a settlement under which the town removes the fill that's in the area, plants 4 trees and 2 bushes in resolution of the claim. So a proposed settlement agreement has been prepared, and the board has that before it for consideration.
Is there any questions from any of the board members on the settlement agreement?
Yeah, I would actually like to distribute, November 16th, 2021, during a Cornwall Town Board special meeting. Pass that around. I'll give you, hopefully I won't enough copies. This was a topic that we had discussed, and a resolution that was proposed and voted on. And it says, whereas over 10 years ago, the town of Cornwall constructed a small parking lot improvement on the boulevard near the intersection with Hasbrook Avenue. I'll give you a copy of the shop, right, okay? And whereas the town of Cornwall has continuously maintained and exercised control over the said parking improvement, and the public has continuously used it for parking and as a turnaround area. And whereas the town has received a letter dating August 25th, 2021 from Jeanette Redden claiming that the said parking improvement on the boulevard has been constructed on real property which she owns, i.e. tax map 38-1-14.2, and requesting the town to remove the said parking improvement and plant trees on the property. Now therefore, it is hereby resolved that the town board respectfully declines the aforesaid request of Jeanette Redden on the grounds that even if the parking improvement was constructed outside the right-of-way on the boulevard, the town has acquired a prescriptive easement for use by the public over the land upon which the parking improvement has been constructed. This was voted on, this resolution was passed last year.
Correct.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
So, yeah, I agree with you. So, I am not in favor of passing this resolution based on the fact that we have actually considered this last year, I don't see any information that will change my position, my vote.
Sure.
And I just wanted to provide this documentation to the board since the three of us were on the board last year
Sure.
and this vote was made.
So I can actually, I'm actually gonna add a little bit of a, so, yes, the board did pass this,
Yes.
but the problem is the town has a proof problem. We have no evidence that we ever constructed a parking lot. In fact, the,
Gosh, I don't know if you
No, I
really
don't
want to
think
get
you
into
should
it
be
in
Okay.
detail while the matter's
Oh,
still
okay.
in litigation.
That's
The
Well-
only thing I would say, Ginny, I don't disagree with what you're saying.
Right.
The difference in circumstances is that was just a letter, and the town took a position in regard to the letter. Now the matter's actually in suit, and the town has to deal with the,
Okay.
you know, vicissitudes of litigation. So, I mean, your position's your position, I
My
completely
position,
understand.
right,
But
exactly right.
it's a little different as far as we just got a letter and the town takes a position,
Right.
as opposed to now the town is dealing with litigation.
Right, we
you know,
took this under council as well last year.
sure, and so so my position on this is that, I'll leave the sort of the, you know, the other stuff to the, you know, out of council here, but the issue is if we have to proceed with litigation, it is one, and we should happen to lose, we don't have coverage of the settlement, we don't have coverage of, so we're basically gonna have to pay the town attorney. If we lose, we have to pay the client's attorney plus the settlement. We could approach 6 figures on this. And for me, this is a cost issue, aside from everything else. So even if we go to court, we're gonna pay substantially more to the town attorney to represent us than it is to settle this out. So that just, the cost factor alone to me is, you know, everything aside, it is the cost factor. We're basically, I think, you know, rolling the dice on this. And we could end up with,
Well, without getting into that
Yeah.
in too much detail, I think what Josh is getting at is that for the trees and the bush, you're talking $1,200, maybe $1,500 altogether, maybe even less. And the rest is gonna be done in-house, so cash layout wise,
About $10,000.
it's, that was what the highway superintendent estimated just overall, but that's not cash layout. That's just
And that's the
actual
time
man
and
hours
what we
and
paid
work.
for engineer and
Yeah,
a
there's
lot of things that we
The
paid in this
engineering
process.
aspects of it are behind the town already as far as that goes. There really wasn't much involved in MHE getting into that. It's, you know, and look, I'm not advocating for it, Virginia. I'm just telling you what the facts are.
Exactly, yeah, and- right.
You know, we'd send out, the buildings, highway department. They'd remove the soil, they'd, put it down the plantings, and pretty much you're done at that point, you know. That's just, I think, the point that Josh is trying to make.
Means the vote was 4-1, and it passed, and you were the only one voted no.
Yes.
yes, that's
And now
correct.
we're trying to actually clean up this mess and not getting it messier than it was. So with voting no, it's gonna cost the town and the
I mean, if,
residents
you know, look,
more.
if we don't go with the, you know, with the settlement, I would say it's on limited risk. If we go with the settlement, we know what the cash layout is, but if we don't, it's on limited cost, it's on limited risk. I think it's, you know, it hurts the reputation of the town. And I'm looking to, above all and beyond, to sort of put this behind us as just another, you know, we're just cleaning up something that we have to clean up, and, you know, this puts us behind us. We can limit the cost to the taxpayer, because this could reach 6 figures in legal fees and settlements.
Could a town councilwoman or man get sued directly by the residents?
I mean, they've alleged elected official wrongdoing, so, I mean, I don't know, I'll leave that to Steve to answer that question, but,
I'm,
My thing is,
I-
since I'm relatively new to the board, the whole thing, I've been, you know, trying to do a lot of homework over the last couple of days about this whole settlement. And, you know, I'm very disturbed by, one, I wanna know what sparked the interest of this to come to surface. You know, and it wasn't August 25th, 2021. I grew up in Cornwall, lived here 67 years, and that
Right.
turnaround was there back in the 70s. You know, the vendors came here in the 80s, you know, so I want to see a couple of things. I'd like to see the deed. I'd like to see who caused this issue to come back up to service. Was it the land trust? I'd like to see their letter of intent. I think my stand is that I would love to table this for at least another month, so we could do a little bit more review and talk to our council about this. That's my take on it as a brand new member.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand about the costs, I hate very much supervisor, about, you know, if we lose, it could cost, you know, a lot more money than $10,000, got it, I understand that. But I don't want to be bully dogged by some resident that has a lot of money, that they said all of a sudden somebody did something that irritated them, and they caused, you know, now they threatened to sue the town. I think that's wrong in so many ways, that we need to like thoroughly review to make sure we understand all of the litigations and all of the footholds, so should I say, both out of town as well as the residents.
I mean, I would ask council if he thinks that we've thoroughly gone through this, because I believe that council has, I believe we've thoroughly gone through this. You know, perhaps we should talk about this in closed session further. So I would move that we table this. We talk about this in closed session because there's a lot more to this that we should discuss.
I think you want to table it when you come to the resolution to
Yeah.
the special meeting.
Agreed.
I agree.
Yeah, that's okay. So let me see here. All right. So next up we have we have Arold Construction, Cornwall Park Townhouse investigation. So this sounds much worse than it is. Basically, as part of the work that we have to do as part of the Firth Cliff I&I project, we basically have to stick cameras down the pipes to see what's in the sewer lines. And Arold Construction, they're doing work already over there. And this is the last piece that we need before the engineer can go to work and, you know, develop the plan to submit to the DEC. So this would be adding, this is not part of Arold's original contract to do the sewer relining and the trenchless piping and stuff. So this would be, the town engineer has asked that the board consider this, because this would be a way to finish the project without having to go back and, so this would be for $1,975 to do all of this televising of the pipes. So I would ask the board to support this in the special part of the meeting. Let me see.
What
So
was the cost of
I'm sorry, it is
1975.
1975.
Yeah.
Okay.
It says pricing based on a 4-hour day, if 4 hours exceeds the full rate of $3,950 will be applied.
All right, so next up, the tree ordinance. So let me just give you an update on what's going on. And you know, we shouldn't call it an ordinance. It's actually going to be, what, a local law?
Local law, yeah.
So let's not, yeah, so actually,
It's a local law.
tree local law, whatever, local, yeah.
Ordinance has such a
Yeah.
ring to it.
Yeah. So basically, the town attorney, the planner, and the planning board attorney, they are currently looking over it. They're putting together a memo for the board. And then the plan is going to be to get the board together with the town attorney, any of the consultants that want to be there, as well as some of the members that worked on this this local law from the CAC. And we're going to get together, maybe an executive or closed session, and we'll discuss it. And the hope is to do that. When are you going to have the memo first by? Was it January?
Well, Dom was actually
Dom?
doing the executive summary, and
Okay.
Kristen was going to chime in with some notes.
Okay.
So I'm, kind of hands off at this point. But
Okay.
I think if we have a meeting with those two,
Okay.
that we can really go over, both the structure of it and the substance, get an idea of what you like and what you don't like, and then we can give feedback to the CCAC,
Yeah.
and they can proceed with it.
Yeah,
Any
so that-
draft that you want from there.
Yeah. So That's the plan. And so once we have that, then we can come out with hopefully get a final bill that we can start holding a public hearing on and get that adopted in the spring, early spring. Hopefully before, I guess we're out of tree cutting season. Which ends on, what is it, March 31st, April 1st, right? That's the,
Yeah.
We don't want.
Yeah. All right, so next up, we have the Central Hudson Street Light Acquisition Agreement. So where we are with this is, I spoke to Jason Maliza today from Central Hudson, and essentially, even though we have this contract that's from, the agreement that's from July 8th,
Yes.
that actually doesn't lock anything in. According to him, they can actually, up until the second that we sign, and we pay them, and so since July, I think he said the price is going up like less than 1%. So basically what I'm gonna ask is not this, I just wanna, allow Tim maybe to have like a week to just, look at this, he just got on the board. And so next week, I would like the board to, essentially authorize me to sign the agreement, and then,
Lock it in.
yeah, lock it in, yeah. But then after that, the next step of this is the town then has to consider the most cost-effective way to pay for this. So we actually have to, so we're gonna have to involve bond counsel, and we're gonna have to have them, see how much it would cost to bond or ban this out versus going with the TELP financing. And that's a step that we have to take.
Right, what happens is, as Josh alluded to, is that you have to approve this contract. The contract has certain gaps in it, because what you're going to be doing is going to a closing after they do inventory of the lights. Even though we already have an inventory, they need to do their own inventory. And the contract calls for sale at net book value.
Right.
I don't know if I have the most recent one or not, but the last one I have was from July. It's $261,671.75. But that's not the figure that's going to actually be your cost. It's going to be whatever it is when you get around to the closing. It can take a couple of months for them to finish that inventory. They call it a closing, and they say it's like a real estate closing, and it's supposed to be at the offices of their attorneys. My experience is that it doesn't close that way. It's all done by mail. You sign off on it. But between the time you sign the check and the time you actually have to close, you have to get your financing in order. So again, as Josh alluded to, you're going to want to speak with bond counsel and figure out, if you're going to go forward with this, how you're going to come up with the funds. And then once you close, you'll own the streetlight heads, and you can begin to determine what you're going to do in terms of replacing them and maintenance and so forth.
Okay. All right, so next up, the iWork software for the building department. So we can't act on it this week. Steve's still going back and forth with iWork on the agreement or the contract.
I'd actually like to talk to the board about that in closed session.
Sure.
But you're right, we are doing exactly that.
Yeah, so it's gonna be another week. So hopefully we can act on it next week if everything's in line. Okay, next up, let me just. We have the agreement between the Humane Society of Walden and the town of Cornwall. I mean, look, we do this is just standard protocol here, so I'm gonna ask that the board authorizes me to sign the agreement for next year with the Humane Society of Walden. All right, next up, we have the approval of towing companies for 2023, the town tow list, and so here we've got Michael Big Jr., Mickey Biggs Quality Auto, Body Inc., Heck Towing, Econo Towing, Pat's Towing. Per the chief's memo, they've done inspections on the above. They meet all the criteria to remain on the tow list. So I'm going to ask that the board approves the tow list for 2023. Let me see. Next up, we have the change order to the sewer district number 1 I&I. This is the project we've been working on, for a while now. So as you know, we have to pay prevailing, or the contractor has to pay prevailing wage, and the Davis-Bacon wage rates have changed, and so so we have to amend the contract to adjust them according to the changes in the Davis-Bacon wage rates, and it takes a resolution by the town board, so this is something we have to do.
It just incorporates it into the contract.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the town's financial obligations under it at all. It's all on the contractor. But
Okay.
just procedurally, you gotta add it to the contract, so.
Okay.
Next up, we have change order number 4, sewer district number 1, I&I. They are asking for an extension of time to complete the project. They're asking basically for 84 days. They've had weather delays, they've had permitting delays from the, from DOT. It took them actually a number of months to get a DOT permit to go under Academy.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that just delayed, so because of between weather, DOT delays, they're gonna need additional time. The DEC has agreed to this, but we have to amend the contract to extend it. So, so next up, we have the Jewish Family Services Friendly Visitor Program, and so as you are aware, last year, for the first time, the town, we ended up entering into a contract with JFS to essentially train volunteers to provide certain services to seniors in the community. While we think that's been, you know, look, it's been a learning year with this, we believe that we actually need, there was different tiers. And so last year we went with the $5,000 tier, but that meant we had to do all the work ourselves. And so this year we want to up it to $10,000, which will give us a 5-hour-a-week community outreach person from JFS who is going to come. They're going to help work with the seniors. They're going to do outreach in the community. They're going to help provide a much better program. And so they'll be working, you know, over with Laura and Phyllis and Councilmember Scott and myself, and we'll be looking to, you know, get this, you know, in place right away.
And it's good because we can have actually more regular meetings and checking to find out what's working and what's not in terms of clients.
Can we go over this in closed session? I have 3 questions, but we can wait.
Yeah, I mean, we can put this off until next week. We just have to approve it by the end of the year. Okay, so next up, updates. Unfortunately, a community development, don't get next year, we get it. I would hope that next year we apply 2023 for the Firth Cliffs money. So they have asked us to reapply again next year, but unfortunately though, we are still under